Hey everybody, John Grimsmo here. I'd like to do a little knife maintenance video for you guys. When I'm checking the knives or assembling them, I like to just wash my hands in hot soapy water, and then my hands are clean enough so they're not gonna create further fingerprints. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this guy apart. Brand new knife, this is how it would come to you guys, except a little bit cleaner because we're playing with it right now. So when I take apart the knife, use the included tool, I like to have it open just a little bit, or even all the way open, but not quite. Just on the little detent thing like that. Because I don't like to open it with the lock bar engaged. Not super critical, this is just how I do it. Very gently put the tool into that polished pivot. Sometimes the Loctite that we use can be a little tight in there, but we don't overuse it, so it should come out just fine. Gently, gently unscrew it. Sometimes the Loctite kind of powders up, so I like to blow off both sides, make it kind of clean. Use the case as kind of a place to put all your stuff. Notice how I have my finger here holding the lock, the flipper tab, so that it doesn't chop my fingers. And then I take that screw off, drop the screw into the container. Then I take that screw off. I can feel the handle starting to come apart. Drop the screw off. Now the handle comes off. Because the lock bar is not engaged, the handle kind of springs apart freely. Take note that there are 2 stop pins. Sometimes they stay in that handle, sometimes they stay in that handle, sometimes it's 1 in each. And then the knife comes apart. You've got your bearings, 1 on each side. You've got your pivot, your stop pins. The spacers stay stationary. I like to always take apart the knife from the lock side as opposed to from the display side. Now the knife is completely apart. From here, you can further take apart the screws for the clip. If you want to take the clip off for any reason, you know, we like to give the customer the option to take the knife apart. Because we designed it so meticulously that everything fits together. There's no real black magic in putting the knife back together. It fits basically only one way, and that's how we like to do it. So we're not too worried about you guys taking it apart, but if you strip screws or if you abuse it or manhandle it, you know, it's kind of your own thing. So just be gentle, be careful. This is a precision item. Obviously, it's very expensive, so take care. So now let's just throw it right back together. First thing is to make sure that the pivot head is located properly. There's 2 little flats on it. It's kind of easy for it to go that way, and if you start putting the knife together, it's going to be wrong. If you put it out upside down, you'll just feel kind of goofy. So I'd like to make sure it's clocked. I hold it with my finger. I put the blade in, make sure you have a bearing, and then a blade, and then a bearing. You can lubricate the bearings, just a little dab of the nano oil under the bearings. Typically we don't because they're ceramic bearings and it's not super critical, but we do lubricate inside the pivot hole. So we put the needle of the nano oil. Let's just show you an example of that right now. So the same thing, nano oil comes out, take the little rubber cap off. So I would put just a drop and then I'd use the needle tip to go around it. Or the other thing you could do, which is probably better, is to put it on the pivot barrel right there, wrap it around. Yeah, I like that better. Because if there was a lot of oil in the pivot hole, then when you assemble it, the pivot's gonna shove the oil up and it might fall into the threads. Not exactly what you want, not the end of the world either. So a little bit of oil on the pivot, up to you about the bearings, and then from here you put the stop pins in. Now we have our completely unpatented dual stop pin system that I came up with in 2014. So 2 different sizes, you can't mess up which goes in which. And then we put the knife back together. I like to kind of aim the stop pins and the pivot in there first and then kind of tilt it down until these click in, and they will click. And then I hold it all together with the blade partially closed, and then put in a frame screw. Careful not to scratch any of the beautiful anodizing. Careful that the blade doesn't guillotine your fingers on the way down. 1 screw, 2 screw, and then the pivot can go in. I've thought about including little tiny tubes of Loctite with the knives, along with these other tools, and maybe we'll do that one day. And that's honestly, that's about where I put it. I just go till it stops, maybe a hair, tiny hair more. Feel the knife, I want it to be able to drop. I want it to flip good, everything feels nice, everything feels normal. If you go too tight, it's not gonna flip nice, and it's definitely not gonna drop. So here I've got some raw parts that have just come off the machine, been heat treated and hard milled, but still need a lot of finishing work. But this will allow me to explain what I'm about to explain. So here is our lock bar, just like here. Here's our detent ball. So it is a ceramic detent ball using the highest quality American-made ceramic that we can possibly find, and they cost us a lot of money and they're awesome. So that ball scrapes along the blade while the knife is closing. Okay, you can see the ball right in there. It's going in, and it's going to scrape this arc on the blade. And on this new blade, we should be able to see it here in a second. There we go. So this arc is what I'm suggesting, that you put the tiniest drop of nano oil right there. Okay, so with that in mind, with that in your head, we've already put a drop on this guy. What I like to do, especially for a brand new knife, is I like to lift the lock bar up, move it so that the ball drops directly on top of that drop of oil, and then I pinch it, and then I kind of rotate it like that. So this is for a brand new knife. Any used knife, even almost brand new, is not really going to need this, but you guys might find it kind of interesting. What I'm doing right now is I'm using the oil to basically smooth out the stone-washed surface, using the ball basically as a piece of sandpaper kind of thing, even though it's not gritty whatsoever. But I'm smoothing out that detent scrape zone, whatever you call it, so that while the blade is dropping shut, it's got the smoothest possible bearing surface. You can check for blade play, don't cut yourself. So I hold the handle firmly and I hold the blade tip firmly, don't cut yourself, and I rotate it back and forth. I can feel the tiniest bit of blade play if I move pretty hard. If I move lightly, I feel nothing. So I could go a little bit tighter, feel for blade play again, nothing. And now we got to combine that with the smoothness, because for me, I'll take a tiny bit of blade play and butter smoothness, but right now we've got it perfect. There's no blade play, decently smooth for a 4-year-old knife. And last thing is I'm just going to put a little drop of oil on the detent track like I told you about. There we go. I'm going to lift the lock bar up, drop it on top of the oil, and kind of wear it in. And now it's a guillotine. Love it. But yeah, that is basic maintenance of your Norseman knife. Same goes for the Rask. The exact same goes for the Rask. We designed the two knives, you know, with similar hardware, similar components. They come apart the same way, they go together the same way. They both have dual stop pins now, and they both get lint trapped in the same places. So hopefully that helps answer a few questions. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comments, and maybe we can get to those in future videos. So we got a lot to work on and think about for that. All right, hope that helps. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more. Take care, bye.